This is big breaking emergency news. We are now getting a major warning that you need to be getting out of these certain cities and these certain states because things are going to get a lot worse. That's what the warning coming from the Texas governor is saying right now. We also have hundreds of National Guard troops are being deployed today, and we also have federal authorities arresting and releasing people back into our country that are on these FBI international watch lists, right? You can't make this stuff up. We also have a new bill that is going to be passed. They're trying to pass it right now. This is on top of the border bill that they're talking about. We have another new bill that is going to make things even worse and incentivize and fund this situation even more. All right, so there's a ton of big breaking news going on right now, and our country is at a tipping point. All right, and things are going to get worse in these major cities. That's what the Texas governor is warning, and part of the reason why is because federal authorities are releasing these FBI watch list suspects into our country right now, right? And this is confirmed. They released somebody that was on this watch list into our country, and now they just rearrested them because they realized, wait a minute, this person's actually on the watch list, and he has been in our country for almost a year. You can see here it says federal authorities caught somebody that was on the FBI international watch list at the U.S. southern border and released him into the country, where he roamed freely for nearly a year, being arrested in Minnesota just days ago. This is according to an internal federal memo exclusively obtained by the Daily Caller News Foundation. It says he was released shortly after being caught illegally crossing the southern border near San Isidro, California on March 13th, 2023, according to the memo. It says the screening center, quote, deemed him a mismatch after running his name through a watch list, according to the memo, which was sent to ICE officials. It says, however, on January 18th, 2024, the screening center, quote, made a redetermination that the individual was, quote, a confirmed member of one of these groups and was involved in the use and manufacture and transport of illegal substances and items used for these crimes, the memo states. It says 2 days later, ICE nabbed this member in Minneapolis, Minnesota, right? And just in the last 3 months, there has been 50 people that have crossed the border that have been on these FBI international watch lists. All right, so they caught this person in March of 2023 and they let him in, and then they redetermined that, wait a minute, this is actually one of these people we were looking for, and they're actively a member in one of these militant groups, and they had to go rearrest him with ICE. This is absolutely insane. This is the national security threat and the national security risk that they are putting us through every single day in our country, and things are about to get a lot worse as well because they are not shutting it down. Even these deals they are working on are still going to allow thousands of people a day to enter. All right, and things are about to get a lot worse for these major sanctuary cities. All right, and while all this is going on, they are also incentivizing more people to come over. They are working on bills and trying to pass bills to give away almost $155 billion in new federal deficits for programs for people to come over here and give them benefits. Okay, for people to illegally come over and give them benefits. They're trying to solidify into law $155 billion every single year. And some of these people that are illegally entering, that are being funded, are actually part of these militant groups as well, like we were just talking about. Some of them, we are actually funding them and giving them resources and feeding them and giving them housing to come to our country and potentially be activated and attack our country at some point, especially if things escalate overseas, all right, especially if this World War III scenario escalates. And just tonight, Biden has authorized airstrikes in the Middle East. Right now, this is going on, right? So things could pop off at a moment's notice, and our border is wide open. Our border is wide open, and it's a major security threat, right? Let's get back into this tax relief, and then we will get into what the Texas governor is saying for these different cities as well in just a second. But this is called the, quote, Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act. All right, that's what they're calling this. But buried inside this act is actually more taxes and more deficits for our country. So it says the bill will generate around $155 billion for new federal deficits through fiscal year 2025, adding upward pressure on inflation and interest. And it says part of this bill is to expand welfare payments to millions of people who are in the country illegally, right? And giving them more access to federal benefits and solidifying it into law. $155 billion in deficits every single year for this. We're going to make it legal now. All right, this is insane. This is insane. And we are paying for this. We are paying for this. Taxpayers are paying for this to give money away to people that aren't even American citizens. This is mind-boggling. I can't believe this is being allowed to happen in our country, right? But this is what's going on, and we are also potentially funding these militant groups that want to enter our country, right? And we have multiple warnings coming out of Texas right now as well, from the lieutenant governor and from the governor himself, Greg Abbott. All right, the lieutenant governor, he is saying Texas, quote, will not stop putting up razor wire on the border after the Supreme Court ruling. That's what Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said on Monday. And he said the state will continue to build razor wire and other fencing on the U.S.-Mexico border. All right, so they're doubling down. They're saying they're not going to stop. They're going to put even more razor wire. And now the governor came out today. He said this morning. All right, he sent a message to sanctuary cities. He said that he's going to double down and he's going to send even more people to these sanctuary cities. All right, that is why you need to get out of these cities. They are collapsing and they are being allowed to collapse. Right, this is all intentional. This is being orchestrated and funded by our own government and by foreign governments as well. They're all funding this and all facilitating this collapse internally of our country. And this is what the Texas governor said. He said, quote, Texas has transported over 102,000 migrants to sanctuary cities. Overwhelmed Texas border towns should not bear the brunt of Biden's open border policies. Quote, our transportation mission will continue until Biden secures the border. All right, so he is saying that they will continue to transport migrants to these sanctuary cities, quote, migrants to the sanctuary cities. That's what the Texas governor is warning of and saying, right? So things are going to get a lot worse. They are dealing with some days over 10,000 people a day, all right? Thousands of people a day are showing up in Texas, and there's nowhere for these people to go. There's nowhere for them to go. And I don't want these people transported even further into our country, right? I don't like this policy either of transporting, because then this is going to change census data as well, right? And it's shutting down our major economic zones in our country. New York City, Chicago, right? Boston, Massachusetts, all these major sanctuary cities, Denver, Colorado, all right? They're saying that they only have 700,000 people, but they had to absorb 40,000 people in the past year. Okay, so this is unsustainable. Denver Health is having their hospital system collapse from overwhelming debt, from migrant debt, quote, migrant debt, because they're just showing up with all these problems, going to the emergency room and also having babies. And they're just putting these hospitals into extreme debt situations, right? So this is what's happening in our country right now. This is being engineered, and these sanctuary cities need to step up, and they need to say that we do not want this. We're going to stop. We are not going to be a sanctuary city anymore. That's what they need to say as well, right? Because these cities are being collapsed internally, but it's part of the plan. It's part of the plan. A lot of these leaders have sadly sold out our country. They have sadly sold out our country. They somehow are worth hundreds of millions of dollars when they were only worth 100,000. They were worth $1 million when they got into office. Now they're worth 300 million. Now they're billionaires. Okay, this is not a coincidence. This is happening on purpose, and a lot of people are getting kickbacks and funny money and all this stuff from this crisis as well. Every crisis that we have like this that is being engineered, people make a ton of money off the backs of it as well, and money disappears. Here we go again. We were talking about earlier, $155 billion in new federal deficits for migrant benefits starting by 2025. All right, this new bill they're trying to pass, there's going to be people skimming off that, politicians skimming off, NGOs, the UN, right? People that are building the facilities and everything. Everyone is getting their hands into this honey jar, and it's being incentivized on all angles. And you can actually see this map of different sanctuary cities. They're all over the country. They're actually all over the country. There's only a few different states, I believe, like Florida, where sanctuary cities are specifically banned. But these sanctuary cities, these sanctuary counties, and entire states are all over the place. Okay, you can see this map. All of the yellow ones are sanctuary counties. All right, these are all different sanctuary counties. All the red ones are different sanctuary cities. And all the green boxes are sanctuary states. Okay, even down in the South, Louisiana, we have New Orleans, sanctuary city, right? We have Jackson, Mississippi, sanctuary city. All over the place. Louisville, Kentucky is a sanctuary city, okay? Iowa City, Iowa, sanctuary city. Detroit, Michigan, sanctuary city, okay? These are all over the place, especially up in the Northeast. It seems like every other town up there and every other county is a sanctuary city. Burlington, Vermont, all right? Albany, New York. Ithaca, New York. Providence, Rhode Island. Newark, New Jersey. New York City, all right? These sanctuary cities are everywhere, and Texas cannot absorb this amount of people. On the West Coast, they're all over California as well, right? Santa Ana, California. Springfield, Oregon. All right, Fremont, California. All these different cities need to denounce this, and all these different counties, they need to denounce this sanctuary city status. They need to get on board with the 25 other states that are supporting Texas, so something happens and something changes in our country, because this is unsustainable. They are leading us down a path of destruction, and we're reaching a point where we're not going to be able to turn back. We're not going to be able to turn back. It's already half the country is sanctuary cities and sanctuary states and counties. It's already half the country, right? Half the country has already been overwhelmed. Their social services, they have the National Guard guarding these certain hotels that have been taken over, and they still refuse to back down. They still refuse to say we aren't a sanctuary city anymore. And even this county in Minnesota, Hennepin County, right, where Minneapolis is, that is the same county where this guy we were talking about earlier, this guy that was on the FBI watch list, that's where he was, right? He was in this sanctuary city hiding out because they knew that ICE has no jurisdiction there. They don't coordinate with ICE or federal authorities at all to deport people or detain people that have a legal immigration status, right? They don't help them at all in these certain areas. And Hennepin County is where this guy was living on the FBI international watch list that was let into who was actively in one of these militant groups and let into our country for almost a year. He was hanging out in Minneapolis, and this is one of the sanctuary cities, sanctuary counties, right? So you need to be getting out of these sanctuary cities, these sanctuary counties. They are very dangerous. They are not safe. And the Texas governor is warning that he's not going to keep them in Texas, so he's going to send them there, right? I don't want people further into our country, but I also understand Texas side that they don't want these people there, right? The federal border needs to be shut down. We need to have our military there. We need to have thousands and thousands of National Guard at our southern border and protecting our border right now, right? And we actually have hundreds of National Guard that are being deployed right now to the Middle East. Okay, so I reported on a couple weeks ago how there were around 1,500 National Guard from New Jersey deploying to the Middle East, and now we have 300 Illinois National Guard deploying to the Middle East as well for Operation Spartan Shieldmore, right? This is insane. This is insane that we don't have every state deploying National Guard troops to our border right now. That should be 300 troops to our border to protect our border and to keep our country safe and to not just let these people in and process them, right? That should be where the deployment is, right? This is absolutely insane that this is happening. And on top of what happened yesterday, where our troops are having casualties and we are sending them into harm's way over there as well, right? 300 more troops to be in harm's way. And there actually was a Arizona National Guard member was actually over there yesterday in the attack in Jordan, right? On the US-based Tower 22, there actually was a Arizona National Guard member that was over there and almost got hurt, right? Thankfully, they didn't get hurt, but we are sending our National Guard over here to the Middle East as well when they should be deploying. And Illinois is one of these sanctuary states and has sanctuary counties all over, right? It's one of the main sanctuary states. Illinois, that's where Chicago is. The entire state is a sanctuary state. It's lit up green on this map here. Entire sanctuary state. And then they have 300 troops to deploy to the Middle East, though. Absolutely insane. And it's just, it doesn't make sense. All right. We also have Virginia. Virginia is also deploying 70 National Guard members to Poland, okay, for an entire year. So, once again, there's not 70 members going to our border that's being overwhelmed and overrun, and our country is experiencing an invasion. 70 members going to Poland, okay? You just can't make this up, and it doesn't really make sense. Doesn't make sense. We are defending every other country's borders on earth except our own country's borders. Our own country is wide open right now while people are crossing that are part of these militant groups and on these FBI watch lists. And there actually was confirmed just today from a previous report that was just released, okay, it has been confirmed that there are U.S. military troops on the ground in Yemen right now as well. Okay, so this was a disclosure that was released on a White House report, okay, that was sent to Congress. You can see here it says, quote, a small number of United States military personnel are deployed to Yemen to conduct operations against these militant groups in the Arabian Peninsula, right? It says the White House told Congress in its most recent War Powers Act report. So we also have U.S. military troops on the ground in Yemen right now. Very dangerous situation for them to be over there. in Yemen, and we are not even sure exactly what they're doing over there. They said they're doing operations against these militant groups, but very dangerous situation, right? And we could have another situation where we potentially lose some more troops, right? Let's hope that doesn't happen. But things are escalating, especially coming on top of right now. We have Biden has authorized strikes in the Middle East, airstrikes. So Congress is also pressing Biden. They are saying that he needs to come to Congress to get this authority and get authorization for these airstrikes. But the Biden administration is saying that they have the authority to use military force due to previous laws that were passed by Congress, right? We know how this works. It's never authorized anymore for these military strikes. But Congress is urging Biden to get approval for these strikes, right? So things could pop off. Things could escalate. We could see these militant groups that we know are inside the U.S., we could see them activated and told to act out a plan, right? They could have training. They could be ready to go. They could potentially have weapons. And we even got this warning from ex-FBI officials. Top officials were warning this just a few days ago in an open letter to Congress, right? They were warning that these groups are inside the U.S. and they're ready to attack, and they could hit U.S. critical infrastructure, and we could see major blackouts, right? They could hit the grid. Do you remember last year and at the end of 2022 and early 2023, there were a ton of attacks on the U.S. grid. There were people attacking them with firearms, all these different things. The U.S. grid was under attack. And then we saw the trains, right? We saw then we saw a bunch of warehouses, farm factories. We've seen these different infrastructures targeted over the past year or two. And it could have been these groups targeting this critical infrastructure inside our country and taking it offline, taking off oil refineries. I've covered 100 different stories like this of major critical infrastructures inside the U.S., factories that build critical things for the military, right? All these different things have just had random fires and random explosions and have been taken offline and will probably never be rebuilt. They will probably just get an insurance check, and that'll be that. The business is just gone, and there's no more factory building these critical parks or this critical infrastructure that we need, all right? This is what's been happening the past few years, not to mention all the economic closures as well. But there have been internal attacks on the U.S. going on for a few years now, and we could see a major attack linked to this U.S. border crisis, right? So this is why you need to be prepared. You need to be getting ready. You need to be getting out of these major cities, all right? They are not safe. And if a major power outage happens or a group of these militants try to take over a major city, we could see martial law scenarios. We could see lockdown scenarios in these cities, and you don't want to be stuck there. You don't want to be trapped there. The power could be out for weeks if there's a major attack, maybe even months, all right? The internet communications could be attacked, the cell phone towers, the cables could be cut or severed, all right? There's a bunch of different options that are here on the table, and you can bet that they've been wargaming all of them. These cities are not safe. Our airports are not safe. I've been covering how there are hundreds of people staying at every major international airport in the U.S. right now, right? Hundreds of people staying there that are not U.S. citizens, and they're building sectioned off areas for them and everything. And now we have the TSA. They are now using facial recognition on American citizens though, right? So if you walk into the airport, You have to get your face scanned now. They now have facial scanning cameras all throughout the major airports, and they said they're adding hundreds of more airports are coming online with this facial recognition. They said more than 400 federalized airports will have this facial recognition over the next few years. All right. And they will be able to directly identify you just from your facial features. All right. They'll be able to scan you, know exactly who you are, where you're going, when you walked in, and it'll all be data mined and logged as well, the times and location of everything you are doing. But if you are not an American citizen, I've been documented as well. You can get on the plane. You don't have to show ID. You can even refuse to get your picture taken. There was this little sign for people saying that you do not have to get your picture taken if you're a, quote, migrant and you need to travel on these planes. And some of these planes, they're spending $200,000 just for a single flight to send these people to certain cities because they are buying expensive charter planes for them as well. All right, so this is being built all around us. All right, they're going to say we need this facial recognition because things aren't safe anymore, but they are allowing them to get unsafe and creating this two-tiered justice system inside of our country as well. Americans have to deal with all of this surveillance and all of these clampdowns, but then if you're not a citizen, you don't even have to get your picture taken or show your ID or anything. It's just free game. And please hit it up for me down there to help get this video out. Please hit that subscribe and that bell if you want to get notified when I'm posting a video every single day. All right, it will notify you, and it helps to get this video out to more people. People need to know what's going on in our country. There's a blackout on this information on the mainstream news. They are not covering this. This is not on any of the television networks, CNN, MSNBC. None of the mainstream news networks are covering this because it makes them look bad. It makes people look bad, and they don't want to cover it. All right, they don't want to cover the truth of what's going on inside of our country. All right, this is a blackout on this information, and it needs to get out. Right, and also make sure you guys are getting prepared, getting stocked up. Make sure you have a generator. Make sure you have your gas tanks filled, your water tanks. Make sure you are working on growing your own food. All right, we got a bunch of chickens over here. You might have heard them chirping throughout the video here. We have a bunch of chickens outside already laying eggs. We have our garden. All right, we have a bunch of trays planted to plant in our garden to transplant in a couple weeks. We have all these things going because you need to be ready. You need to have these systems set up and online. You need to have your prepper pantry stocked up and ready to go. You need to have seeds, fertilizer, chicken food, animal feed, dog food. All right, you need to have all this stuff stocked up, ready to go so you can dig in. You need to be able to defend yourself, protect your family. You are able to dig in if things hit the fan. All right, and we're getting close. There's a lot of big stuff going on internationally and domestically, and it's also 2024. It's going to be a big year. All right, so make sure you're getting prepared. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.